Citizens, it's that time. You are officially in the alert zone. Welcome to another episode of Never Again, the docu-series we are doing here in the alert zone. If you are 18 years of age or older and can be legally armed, practice your Second Amendment rights in America. Is not illegal under the Constitution because we are a worldwide movement. If you live in a foreign country outside of America and you are able to be armed even with a stick, get armed. You never know how much that stick can save your life. Protect your life. It's the only thing you got that's really valuable. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about the Uvalde school massacre and how a police department in live time failed America. So, give me just a second. All right, here we go. The Robb Elementary School shooting was a mass shooting that occurred on May 24, 2022 in Uvalde, Texas, United States, when 18-year-old Salvador Ramos, a former student at the school, fatally shot 19 students and 2 teachers, while 17 others were injured but survived. After shooting and severely wounding his grandmother at their home earlier that day, Ramos drove and entered the school, remaining in an adjoining classroom for more than an hour before members of the United States Border Patrol Tactical Unit fatally shot him after bypassing numerous local and state officers who had been in the school hallways for over an hour. Police officers waited more than 1 hour and 14 minutes on site before breaching the classroom to engage the shooter. Police also cornered off the school grounds, resulting in violent conflicts between police and civilians, including parents who were attempting to enter the school to rescue children. As a consequence, law enforcement officials in Uvalde have been heavily criticized for their response to the shooting, and their conduct is being reviewed in separate investigations by the Texas Ranger Division and United States Department of Justice. Texas Department of Public Safety, DPS, officials laid much of the responsibility for the police response on Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Department. Chief Pedro Arredondo, who they identified as the incident commander. Arredondo disputed the characterization of his role as incident commander, but was later fired by the Uvalde School Board for his actions during the shooting. A report conducted by the Texas House of Representatives investigative community attributed the fault more widely to systematic failures and egregious poor decision-making by many authorities. The report said at Robb Elementary, law enforcement responders failed to adhere to their active shooter training, and they failed to prioritize saving the lives of innocent victims over their own. There was an unacceptable long period of time before officers breached the classroom, neutralized the attacker, and began rescue efforts. Shortly after the shooting, local and state officials gave inaccurate reports of the timeline of events, exaggerated police. The Texas Department of Public Safety acknowledged that it was an error for law enforcement to delay an assault on Ramos' position in the student-filled classrooms, attributing to this school district police chief's assessment of the situation as one of the barricaded subject instead of active shooter. Law enforcement was also aware there were injured individuals in the school before they made their entries. Following the shooting, which occurred 10 days after the Buffalo shooting, wider discussions ensued about American gun culture and violence, gridlock in politics, and law enforcement's failure to halt or intervene during the attack. Around a month after the shooting, Congress passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, and President Joe Biden signed the bill into law. It was the most significant federal gun reform legislation since the federal assault weapons ban of '94. Following the shooting, Robb Elementary was closed and is planned to be demolished. So, of all of the school shootings that has taken place since Columbine, which we detailed here, was opinionly the beginning of the mass shooting era. Since then, Robb Elementary helped spark the debate that this article did not mention and didn't go into detail about. It started a debate about law enforcement. And let me explain something to you. Police officers have families and they're human just like us. TV has taught us that law enforcement are superhuman. They're superheroes. They're the brave men and women that put their lives on the line. Yeah, you put your life on the line when you think you have an advantage. But guess what? Just like gangsters in the street, when somebody's out there slinging their iron and they're willing to put it on you, the first thing come to mind, is it worth it? Do you want to leave your family behind? This was the first time that I can remember that a shooting happened publicly, but especially in the school, and we were able to see in real time the delayed response of law enforcement. For my young people who don't know life before cell phone cameras and the internet, had the internet and cell phone cameras not existed, we never would have knew that. This was the same thing that happened in Columbine. We didn't know it for years because the mainstream media controlled all media. You remember they had the lady that jumped the fence and went and got her kids? They harassed her about deporting her and locking her up and what have you. There was parents being handcuffed because they were trying to enter the school. It was over an hour and 14 minutes, and these officers let kids be slaughtered. And from my understanding, it was an off-duty police officer whose wife was killed that went in there and took this deranged guy out. Uvalde Massacre was an embarrassment on law enforcement in America, and it was an even bigger embarrassment because it happened in the state of Texas. Don't mess with Texas. Texas is so gun crazy is what we was always told, and yet law enforcement officers in Texas allowed 17 kids to be slaughtered and 2 teachers. You see, I'm going to say this. It's easy to say you're willing to engage somebody who you know you have the advantage over, or you know it's not armed. It's a whole lot harder to get into a gunfight with somebody that has what you had or better and is willing to take your life. Let this be a lesson to everybody. We're not anti-law enforcement in the alert zone. We're just pro-justice. Every officer that waited over an hour to go in there should have been fired, and they should have been put on trial. The blood of those kids is on them. It's on their hands. Over an hour it took them to go in there where they knew it was kids being slaughtered. But as I'm going to say again, this guy was willing to shoot it out with law enforcement. So let me say this. And if it's offensive, if the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. For all you guys and girls that like to dress up as law enforcement officers and pretend you're so bad, show us. Just like y'all tell the criminals, if they want to be bad and sling guns to go join the army, show us. Show us when it's time to save kids' lives, go in there and put your life on the line. The whole world watched what happened, and it was embarrassing as an American. It was embarrassing as a gun-loving American, but it was scary as a parent because I have a child that's still in school. That could have easily happened at any school in this country. For those of us who don't think this can happen, look what happened down there in Uvalde. In Texas, of all places, where they like to pretend they're so gung-ho and they're so about law and order, and yet they let the kids be slaughtered. These guys was dressed in armor. These guys, let me say this. I was in Mexico City for a week. I saw law enforcement officers that didn't even have a flashlight. I saw law enforcement officers that had a gun in a holster with a bungee hook to it so nobody take it from them. And that was it, in handcuffs. When we got back and I landed in Chicago O'Hare, the first officer I saw had him a Glock 19 that was loaded. He had 3 spare mags on his belt. He had handcuffs. He had a taser. He had a flashlight. He had on steel toes. He had on body armor. And he had one of them police billies. He was dressed like a Call of Duty warrior. If you're in law enforcement here in America, you have everything you need to fight crime. Show us. This was very, very disheartening to see these officers dressed for combat, and yet in the midst of somebody that was willing to sling iron back with them, the humanity came and they pulled back. See, it's easy to say you support law enforcement that runs and shoots somebody in the back of the fucking head. It's easy to jump on a message board and say, well, he should have complied. It's easy to support law enforcement when you got somebody fleeing from them and they shooting them in the back. It's easy to support law enforcement when somebody's handcuffed and they shoot them in the back or shoot them in the back of the fucking head. If you can support that, well, guess what? You can criticize them for not doing their job and let those kids be slaughtered. As I always say, I don't hate law enforcement. I just point out facts. I'm not anti-law enforcement. I'm pro-justice. I want everybody out there that hears this message to understand. Law enforcement's job is not to protect you. That's your duty. Their job is only to investigate after. Uvalde showed that. Tearing that school down will never, never erase the memory of those kids. It will never erase the memory of what happened. That's why we talk about that here. This can happen at any school. My youngest daughter talk about the active shooter drills they have to keep going through. If you're in the Uvalde area, hit me in the comment section and let me know what you think. If you're a law enforcement and you run into this, let me explain this. I don't hate you because you're a cop, because we need law enforcement. All I say is, if you're going to be macho and machismo, be like that all the time. Don't pick and choose when you're going to be tough. Don't be tough when you know somebody doesn't have something, or you can beat somebody up that's handcuffed, or you can talk your fucking shit because you got the upper hand on somebody. But when the playing field is level, you tuck your tail and you run like a little bitch. I think as an American citizen, I have the right to call you out on that. Since you guys love talking about how there's a war against you, there's no war against cops. We're just against injustice. That's what we're against. I wanted to say rest on to the kids and the teachers that lost their life. Hit me in the comment section and let me know what you think about this. Don't think this can't happen to you. Till next time, everybody out there, get legally armed. Stay safe, stay armed, stay on high alert.